Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we are diving headfirst into one of the most fiercely debated business models out there, network marketing or MLM. If you've been following the space, you already know the core question. How exactly did an industry that literally promised ultimate financial freedom, the whole be your own boss dream, turn into one of the most wildly polarizing topics in the business world? We're going to map out these contrasting themes by unpacking a very specific educational module that breaks down this exact evolution. It's a wild ride from the sky-high industry hype of the late 90s right down to the gritty reality of modern public perception. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so we're starting off with this exact, pretty provocative question pulled straight from our source material. It asks, MLM, and it is the industry of the 90s. Why is it? It's honestly a brilliant starting point because it instantly anchors us in a very specific era of just explosive growth. The 1990s offered this perfect storm, really. You had shifting economies, corporate downsizing, and a workforce that was super eager for alternative income streams, and that completely fueled this business model. This question is basically demanding that we don't just blindly accept the premise of that massive boom, but actually dig into the mechanics behind it.
To get there, we'll follow this roadmap. First, venturing into network marketing. Second, the 90s industry boom. Third, the MLM stigma. And finally, media bashing and backlash. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Venturing into Network Marketing Module Overview.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this curriculum layout is how clearly it outlines a stark contrast. It moves incredibly fast from high praise to, well, harsh reality. It perfectly balances the golden allure of the industry with its heaviest baggage. On one hand, we're tackling the totally optimistic vision of MLM. You know, the classic pitch of passive income, early retirement, and building a massive organization right from your living room. But then, it takes this sharp but totally necessary turn to examine the complex downlines, the societal skepticism, and the aggressive media bashing that inevitably followed. It's a complete 180-degree pivot, from extreme optimism right to fierce criticism, which perfectly captures the true dual nature of venturing into this space.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 90s industry boom, the promise.
The source material explicitly zeroes in on this historical framing, presenting multi-level marketing as the definitive economic force of the 1990s. But to really get a grip on this, we have to look at how it functioned back then. I mean, think about it. Before the internet was in absolutely every home, MLM was heavily driven by face-to-face interactions. We're talking living room pitches, whiteboard presentations in stuffy hotel conference rooms, and handing out cassette tapes. People were selling everything from deregulated telecommunication services and long-distance calling cards to water filters and vitamins. Framing the curriculum this way sets up a baseline of immense momentum. It really invites us to step into a mindset where the potential for everyday people to become millionaires seemed absolutely limitless.
But why? Unpacking that why is absolutely crucial here. Why did this specific decade create such a massive boom? Well, the text pushes us into an analytical headspace to figure out those driving forces. During the 90s, the traditional job market was seeing a profound shift. Corporate loyalty was kind of fading, layoffs were way more common, and at the exact same time, markets were going global. All of this created incredibly fertile ground for the appeal of home-based businesses. Network marketing offered a ready-made entrepreneurial system with super low barriers to entry. It wasn't just about selling a product, right? It was really about selling the dream of self-reliance at a time when traditional economic security felt increasingly shaky.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates the core tension of our subject. You have the extreme expectation on the left versus the polarizing reality on the right. It's a fascinating narrative because the exact same mechanics that birthed the boom are what created the heavy societal pushback. To get that massive growth, the model heavily incentivized recruitment over standard retail product sales. The golden allure was always that you could recruit a team and earn overrides on their efforts. But naturally, that very structure meant exponential growth was required, which mathematically leads to market saturation and burnout for folks at the bottom. To really understand network marketing, you have to grasp both of these sides simultaneously: the powerful economic engine of the boom and the undeniable social friction it generates.
Which brings us directly to Section 3, the MLM stigma, the reality.
So, as an impartial explainer, we have to look directly at this heavy concept. The source simply calls it the MLM stigma, and it absolutely doesn't shy away from it, because you literally cannot navigate the industry without mapping the terrain of public doubt. But what exactly is this stigma?
Well, it primarily stems from the aggressive sales tactics required to sustain those massive downlines, which often end up blurring the lines between personal relationships and business transactions. This is where we see the really well-documented alienation of friends and family, as every single social interaction kind of becomes a potential sales pitch. On top of that, the stigma is heavily rooted in the statistical reality that while the top fraction of a percent might achieve that promised wealth, the vast majority of participants at the bottom of the structure see incredibly low success rates. That stark contrast between the marketed dream and the mathematical reality, that is the absolute foundation of the stigma.
Now we're at Section 4, Media Bashing and Backlash, the Public Perception.
This direct quote, MLM bashing in the media, shows that anyone venturing into this space has to objectively confront a fierce phenomenon of public backlash. It's one thing for there to be a general, quiet societal stigma, right? It's another thing entirely to face active, broadcasted criticism. In the years following that initial 90s boom, the media began to focus really heavily on the controversies. We saw major investigative reports unmasking income disclosures of various companies, there were highly publicized government crackdowns, massive regulatory shifts by the FTC, and huge consumer protection lawsuits making primetime news. The curriculum highlights this because managing this kind of external communication and really weathering intense systemic media scrutiny is just a daily reality for the industry.
So we leave you with this final thought to ponder. We've looked at the undeniable math and massive momentum of the 90s boom, and we've weighed it against the totally unavoidable reality of the social cost and regulatory backlash. So how do you reconcile that initial powerful promise of financial independence with such a deeply ingrained public resistance? How does one successfully navigate an industry caught so perfectly between its golden era of hype and the enduring reality of modern media stigma? It requires looking objectively at both the bright light of the opportunity and the very real shadow it casts. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those tough questions, and we'll see you next time.